Captain Cook's expedition left England on August 1768 and sailed towards New Zealand. He worked for the Lord of the British Admiralty. He worked for King George III. He used a map supplied by the Dutch East India Trading Company. On the ship there was another bloke called Joseph Banks. He's the man that funded all the scientific research. He was very rich and his family was connected to the City of London. That's the banking part, not the tourist part. And one assumes that the City of London owned the East India Trading Company. If you have a look in England, they put up a monument to Captain Cook when he departed England. Just zoom in. Not quite sure why they put it there, but it's an Egyptian obelisk in the middle of the paddock. Captain Cook sailed to Australia and he landed in Australia. And they put up a Egyptian obelisk to mark the spot where Captain Cook landed. Here it is here. Zoom in. And he sailed from Australia to New Zealand. He landed at a place called Gisborne. And they installed a Egyptian obelisk there as well. That's it there. Here's a older photo from the original one. And when Captain Cook died, he died in the Hawaiian Islands, in the middle of nowhere. They've actually put up a Egyptian obelisk to mark the death of Captain Cook. Here it is here, not really on the tourist trail. Yeah, not a very easy place to get to. Now if we look in Auckland, which is New Zealand's biggest city, on top of the hill in Auckland, overlooking the city, is a big Egyptian obelisk. There was a very famous New Zealand Prime Minister, Michael Joseph Savage. He brought in the 40-hour working week. There's actually a monument to him in Auckland. He was probably one of New Zealand's most famous Prime Ministers. But if you go in and have a look at his monument, I mean, zoom in a little bit more, you can see the pond. There's the pond there. Sort of reminds you of a much larger one, doesn't it? There's the obelisk and the pond. That's a memorial to Michael Joseph Savage. If we zip over to Washington, they've got a bigger version of the same thing. Just zoom in. I assume it's not to mark the spot where Captain Cook landed. The City of London, that's the logo of the banking part, paid for the expedition. That's the logo of the British East India Trading Company. That's another one of their logos. And this is one here. You notice it's got 3 ships on it. And it's got the lines with the fishtail. New Zealand crest of arms has 3 ships as well. It's a painting of Christopher Columbus, and he had 3 ships as well. Christopher Columbus left from Spain, but he was actually from Genoa in Italy. That's the crest for the city of Genoa in Italy. If you have a look at the top of the crown, there's a symbol of the Roman god Janus. The month of January is named after him. This is the flag of Genoa. Tends to look a bit like the English flag. And that flag is on the City of London logos as well. And in Genoa there's a bank called the Bank of St George. It's the first of the modern banks. It was started about the 1400s. And on that bank there's actually a carving of Christopher Columbus. The City of London, the banking part, paid for Captain Cook's expedition to New Zealand. Here's another logo of the East India Trading Company. It's got the 3 ships as well, and the lines with the fish tail. Here's a flag of the British East India Trading Company. Sort of got a familiar look about it. The bank seemed to like putting up Egyptian obelisks everywhere. Here's another flag that looks a bit like the British East India Trading Company. You've got to wonder whether the same banks paid for all the expeditions and own all the same countries.